My name is Emily Carter. I'm 27 years old. And for the last 3 years, I believed I was becoming part of the Reynolds family. A family that held tight together through holidays, birthdays, and quiet Sunday dinners. But the truth was far colder than the warmth they showed me in person. They never really accepted me. At least, not online. Not where it mattered most. Because every time they posted their perfect family photos on Facebook or Instagram, I was either cropped out completely or shoved into the background like a forgotten shadow, no tags. No mentions. Nothing to mark me as one of them. I wasn't just overlooked, I was erased. It started subtly, almost invisibly. The first Thanksgiving we spent together, I smiled through the big family photo, standing awkwardly between Michael, my boyfriend, and his mother, Susan Reynolds. Michael held my hand gently, his eyes soft. Susan smiled politely but without warmth. She was always flawless. The picture of a perfect family matriarch, pearls, tailored sweater, voice steady and calm like she was directing a play. The camera flashed, and the moment was captured. But when the photo was later posted online, my image had been carefully cropped out. The space where I'd stood was an empty sliver like I'd never existed. I stared at the screen. The emptiness where my face should be. Feeling an ache I hadn't expected. I told myself it was an accident. Just a mistake. Maybe it was too close to the edge of the picture. A cropping issue. But then came Michael's dad's retirement party a few months later. With the same ritual smiles, hugs, group photos. Once again, I was erased online. Not even a group tag. Just a digital ghost. My heart sank each time I saw the posts. It wasn't about vanity, it was the sting of rejection. The unspoken message that I was an outsider masquerading as family. The pain was quiet but persistent. Like a slow drip wearing away at my self-worth. I tried to push it down. To not make it a thing. After all, Michael insisted I was family, and Susan told me to just smile and fit in. But the smiles felt forced. Like a mask I had to wear while the truth simmered just beneath. The social media posts became battlegrounds, public proof of private exclusion. Every tagged photo of Michael's siblings, parents, cousins, each one a reminder that I wasn't included in the story they told the world about themselves. My breaking point came during Olivia's birthday party. Olivia, Michael's 8-year-old niece, was the one family member who treated me with genuine kindness. She ran up to me, hugged me tight, whispering that I was the best auntie ever. But even Olivia's love couldn't shield me from the hurt of the photos posted after the party. There I was, blurred and untagged, pushed to the margins of their digital album. And when I asked Michael about it, he shrugged and said, "Mom's just old-fashioned about these things." It felt like he was trying to excuse what was clearly deliberate. Then came Easter. The family lined up, as always, for the obligatory family photo. But this time, I said no. I smiled politely and stepped aside. Susan frowned. Confusion, mixing with offense. "Come on, Emily. Your family," she said, voice tight. I returned a calm smile. "Only until the editing starts," I replied quietly. The room froze, the air thick with tension. Michael later told me I'd embarrassed his mother, that I was making it a thing. But was I really, or was it already a thing? And I was just refusing to pretend otherwise. That night, alone in my apartment, I replayed every moment, every photo, every subtle exclusion. The ache had turned to anger. But beneath that was a fierce determination. I wasn't going to be invisible anymore. I began to think about ways to turn the tables, to expose the cracks in the Reynolds family's perfect image. I remembered the times I'd overheard Susan talking candidly on the phone, her voice laced with frustration about outsiders and keeping the family picture flawless. I realized I might have more leverage than I thought. My mind raced with plans and possibilities. I started quietly collecting evidence screenshots, voice notes, messages, each piece a small dagger piercing the illusion they carefully curated. I knew I couldn't do this alone. Tara, my best friend and a lifestyle blogger with a fierce sense of justice, promised to help. She said, "If anyone can expose the Reynolds hypocrisy, it's you." For the first time in months, I felt a spark of hope amid the growing storm. But what I didn't expect was the shadow from within the leak, from someone inside the family who was already watching and waiting. Linda Nguyen, a former assistant to Susan who had been fired under mysterious circumstances, began to stir up rumors, tagging me in edited photos and spreading whispers online designed to isolate me further. It was like the Reynolds' perfect facade was cracking, and the pieces were falling in my direction dangerously close. I knew the battle ahead would be messy. I knew I'd be fighting more than just social media slights. But something deep inside me had shifted. The girl who once longed to belong was ready to shatter the illusion and reclaim her place on her terms. The next time we gathered for Thanksgiving, I wasn't going to be just a ghost in the frame anymore. I had a secret that would change everything. And when I revealed it, the Reynolds family would never look the same again. The Easter party was supposed to be a fresh start, a chance for me to blend in, to finally feel part of the Reynolds family. Instead, it became the moment everything fell apart. The sun was soft that afternoon, filtering through the wide windows of Susan's pristine living room. Laughter echoed, plates clattered, and Olivia twirled in her pastel dress. Michael stood close, whispering reassurances, telling me everything would be fine. But as soon as Susan announced, "Let's get the family picture," I felt the old, familiar weight settling on my chest. I knew what was coming. When I declined the photo, saying I'd rather not be in it this time, Susan's expression shifted instantly from warm hostess to icy matriarch. "Emily, come on," she said sharply. "Your family." Her eyes, though, were cold, like a warning. "Only until the editing starts," I said, voice soft but clear. The silence that followed was deafening. Michael's jaw tightened, and even Olivia looked up at me with a questioning frown. It was as if I had crossed an invisible line no one dared mention before. Susan left the room, her footsteps heavy, and I caught Michael's conflicted glance. Later, in the quiet of the kitchen, he told me, "Mom feels embarrassed. You're making a thing out of nothing." But to me, it was never nothing. It was everything, the way they erased me from their story, piece by piece. The truth was, Susan didn't want me there. Not really. She wanted the family to look perfect, undisturbed by the outsider who didn't fit her narrative. Days after Easter, the social media posts surfaced. This time, it wasn't just omission. Someone had hacked the Reynolds family page and posted an altered photo of me, photoshopped into a silly, unflattering image with the caption, "Guess who crashed Easter?" The comments were cruel, snide remarks, exclusionary jabs. My heart twisted with a mix of betrayal and humiliation. How deep did their hatred run? Who was behind this? Michael's discomfort grew. He barely looked me in the eye during our calls. Caught between his mother's fierce protectiveness and his feelings for me, I realized I was fighting alone. A ghost battling a hurricane. The isolation felt unbearable. But I clung to one lifeline, Tara. My best friend. She listened without judgment. Fueled my resolve. This is war, she said. And you have the ammo. We just need to aim carefully. As we began digging, Tara discovered that Linda Nguyen, the woman Susan had fired from managing the family's social media, was stirring trouble online. Planting those vicious edits and false rumors. Linda's bitterness was a secret weapon, fueling the Reynolds facade to crack further. She was the invisible hand, turning the screws, and we had to be ready. At the same time, I replayed the voice notes I'd secretly recorded during family dinners, the clipped tones in Susan's voice, when she spoke about outsiders like me. The way she plotted to keep the Reynolds image spotless at any cost. Those recordings became my shield and sword. They were the truth Susan desperately tried to hide. And I was ready to wield them. But the emotional toll was heavy. Night after night, I lay awake, wrestling with doubt and fear. Could I really expose them? What if Michael sided with his mother? What if I lost everything? Each doubt was a knot tightening in my chest. Yet beneath the fear was a fierce flame. Justice wasn't just about me anymore. It was about demanding recognition, respect, and ending the toxic cycle of invisibility. Then came the moment when Olivia, innocent and unfiltered, broke through my armor. She slipped into my apartment one afternoon, clutching a homemade card. "Aunt Emily," she said, "I don't want you to be invisible." Her small hand holding mine, her eyes wide, and trusting it was a reminder of what was at stake. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for belonging, for truth, and for a family that meant what it said. With Tara's help, I began planning. We mapped out the timing, the delivery, the impact. Thanksgiving was approaching, a perfect storm of tradition and expectation. If I could reveal Susan's cruelty, then, in front of the entire family, there would be no denying it. No escaping the truth. No more photoshopped erasures. No more invisible sidelines. The plan was risky. It could backfire spectacularly. But I had nothing left to lose. The Reynolds' perfect world was built on lies, and I was going to pull it apart. One voice note at a time. As I rehearsed the words, the moments, the timing, I felt a strange calm settle. This was my reckoning, my chance to be seen. And when I stood before them that Thanksgiving night, I wasn't just Emily Carter, the erased girlfriend. I was the woman who would finally be impossible to ignore. Thanksgiving evening arrived with a brittle chill settling over Chicago. The kind that sharpens nerves and heightens anticipation. Susan's house was decked out in its annual holiday finery, warm candlelight, polished silverware, and the unmistakable scent of roasted turkey mingling with cinnamon and cloves. The Reynolds family had gathered, ever way, as always, for their traditional photo session, a ritual they performed with obsessive precision. But this year, I was no longer just a silent participant in their tableau. I came armed with a secret one they could never erase. The room buzzed with polite chatter and forced smiles as Susan, in her perfectly tailored sweater, motioned for us all to assemble. Michael squeezed my hand briefly, his gaze flickering with unease. I felt the weight of everyone's eyes, expectant. judging, waiting to see if I would fall back into my old place, invisible and voiceless. Instead, I stepped forward. Before Susan could raise the camera, I pulled out my phone and pressed play. The voice that filled the room was unmistakable. Susan's own words, laced with condescension and fear, confessing how she deliberately kept me out of the picture, afraid I would tarnish their family's flawless image. Her voice cracked, betraying the cold control she wielded like a shield. The room froze. Forks paused midair. Eyes widened. Breaths caught in throats. Michael's face paled. Olivia's innocent smile faded as confusion clouded her gaze. Susan's composure shattered. The proud matriarch reduced to a woman exposed. Her lips trembled. The carefully crafted facade crumbling in real time. David shifted uncomfortably. The legal eagle silenced by truth, he could neither defend nor deny. For a long moment, silence reigned. Then Susan's voice, barely above a whisper, tried to reclaim authority, but it rang hollow. The perfect family image they'd curated for years was unraveling in front of them, no edits. No cropping. No filters could hide this reality. Michael stepped closer to me, his eyes searching mine. I saw conflict, guilt, and finally, resolve. Emily, he said quietly. I'm sorry. I should have stood by you sooner. Olivia tugged at my sleeve, her small hand warm and steady, grounding me in this storm of revelations. Tara, who had secretly recorded the entire moment on her phone, glanced at me with a mixture of pride and relief. The tide had turned, but the fallout was immediate. Susan retreated to a corner, tears streaming silently as the family fractured into whispered conversations and pointed glances. Some siblings took my side, shocked at the duplicity. Others stayed loyal to Susan, unwilling to face the fracture in their perfect world. The room pulsed with unspoken accusations and fractured loyalties. As the night wore on, the veneer of normalcy thinned. Michael and I found a quiet moment away from the tension, and he confessed how trapped he'd felt, torn between his mother's demands and his love for me. I was scared, he admitted. Scared of losing my family, but scared of losing you too. His honesty ignited a fragile hope inside me. Yet, the battle wasn't over. Linda Nguyen, the disgruntled ex-assistant, retaliated viciously online, spinning tales that painted me as a manipulative outsider trying to tear the family apart. Her posts ignited a social media storm, dividing the Reynolds clan and their followers. The fight for truth had spilled beyond Susan's walls into the digital arena, a battlefield with no rules. But this time, I was ready. With Tara's help, I countered the lies with facts, screenshots, and the undeniable recordings. Each post dismantled Linda's narrative piece by piece, rallying support from friends, colleagues, and even some family members who had grown tired of the charade. In the weeks that followed, and the Reynolds family was forced to confront their fractures openly, apologies were exchanged, but wounds ran deep. Susan's grip loosened, and Michael stood firmer beside me. Olivia, ever the innocent heart, became my greatest ally, her simple acceptance, a beacon amid the chaos. Through it all, I learned that belonging isn't given, it's fought for. That sometimes, to be seen, you have to step out of the shadows and shine a light so bright it can't be ignored. My revenge wasn't about tearing down for the sake of pain, it was about reclaiming my place in a world that tried to erase me. And in that, I found freedom. In the weeks that followed that explosive Thanksgiving night, a life for the Reynolds family and for me changed in ways none of us could have predicted. The perfect, polished image Susan had spent decades cultivating was shattered, and the fallout rippled through every corner of their lives. I felt the weight of it every morning as I woke. The quiet, knowing that my decision had started something irreversible. At first, the silence was deafening. Susan withdrew into herself. Her once commanding presence reduced to a shadow. Family gatherings became tense affairs, where conversations skirted around the elephant in the room, my presence. Michael tried to bridge the gaps, but the fractures ran deep. I could see the strain in his eyes, the conflict between his love for me and the loyalty he still felt toward his mother. One afternoon, as I sat alone in my apartment, my phone buzzed with a message from Olivia. It was a simple text, but to me, it was a lifeline. "I miss you at dinner. Can we bake cookies this weekend?" The innocence in those words cut through the chaos and reminded me why this fight mattered. Olivia wasn't just a niece or a child caught in the crossfire. She was a symbol of the hope that even broken families could heal. Slowly, the walls between us began to crumble. Michael and I made a pact to face the storm together, no matter how fierce it got. We started attending therapy sessions, both as a couple and family, trying to navigate the complex emotions tangled up in betrayal, pride, and fear. It was exhausting and raw, but necessary. The old dynamics didn't disappear overnight. Progress was measured in small victories, a genuine smile here, a heartfelt apology there. Meanwhile, Linda Nguyen's social media campaign against me lost momentum. Her venomous posts were met with growing backlash as friends, and even some Reynolds family members called her out. Tara's support was unwavering, amplifying my voice and ensuring the truth wasn't drowned in noise. The digital battlefield was brutal, but it was where I learned the power of resilience and community. In an unexpected twist, David Reynolds, the usually silent patriarch, began to step forward. Quietly but firmly, he confronted Susan, urging her to let go of control and accept the new family reality. His intervention surprised us all. The man who had seemed passive was quietly becoming an agent of change. His presence brought a new balance to the fractured household, forcing Susan to confront her own fears and prejudices. The tension at family events never fully disappeared, but they evolved. Instead of exclusion and silent battles, there were moments of awkward honesty and tentative reconciliation. Michael stood by me openly now, no longer the hesitant son torn between worlds. Olivia's warmth never wavered. Her simple acts of kindness bridging divides adult pride had created. For me, this journey was transformative. What began as a fight for recognition became a deeper exploration of identity, belonging, and self-worth. I realized that family isn't about flawless pictures or social media perfection. It's about vulnerability, acceptance, and sometimes hard truths spoken in the quiet aftermath of conflict. The road ahead remains uncertain. Relationships can be fragile, and forgiveness is a process, not an event. But I have learned that standing up for oneself, demanding respect, and embracing the messy realities of human connection is the only way to find true belonging. As the next holiday season approached, I felt a cautious optimism. The Reynolds family was no longer perfect by society's standards, but it was real, and for the first time in years, I felt truly seen. The aftermath of everything, the confrontation, the unraveling of the Reynolds family's polished image. The painful truths laid bare left a mark, not just on them, but deeply on me. It was in those quiet moments alone that I truly understood what had happened, not just externally, but inside myself. I had been fighting for more than just a place in a family photo. I was fighting for my dignity, my identity, and for a voice that had been silenced far too long. The psychological weight of invisibility is heavier than most realize. It's the subtle erosion of confidence that comes from being present, yet unseen. Loved, yet not fully accepted. I remember sitting in my apartment after one particularly difficult family dinner, replaying every smile and cold glance. My body was tense. Heart pounding, not just from anger, but from a deep-rooted fear that perhaps I was meant to be the outsider forever. That fear is suffocating. But as I reflected, I saw a different truth emerging. The anger I felt wasn't destructive, it was a catalyst. It sparked the courage to confront the lies, to demand recognition where there was none. Revenge, in my case, wasn't about cruelty or malice, it was a form of justice. A reclaiming of power in a system built to exclude me. It was ethical and necessary. Susan's actions, though painful, revealed her own vulnerabilities, fear of losing control, of being replaced, of confronting imperfection in her family. Michael's hesitance showed his human struggle to balance love and loyalty. Olivia's innocence shone as a reminder that acceptance is learned, not innate, and Tara's steadfast support exemplified the power of chosen family and solidarity in adversity. I realized then that family drama isn't black and white. It's a tapestry of flawed people, each with their own pain and pride, mistakes and regrets. To truly heal requires empathy as much as courage, acknowledging not just how you've been wronged, but why the other person acted as they did. This journey taught me that visibility is more than physical presence, it's emotional acknowledgement. To be seen is to be valued. To be heard is to be respected. And those who try to erase others do so out of their own fears and insecurities. Not because the erased lack worth. For anyone watching who has ever felt sidelined, overlooked, or silenced, your story matters. Your pain is valid, but so is your power. Standing up, speaking out, demanding your place isn't just brave, it's necessary for your own liberation and for changing the toxic cycles that keep others invisible. Looking back, I am grateful for the struggle. It revealed who I am, what I deserve, and the strength I carry. The Reynolds family will never be perfect in the way Susan once dreamed, but they are real, and so am I. As this chapter closes, I want you to remember, this belonging is not about fitting into a mold. It's about breaking free from the need to be accepted by those who refuse to see you and creating your own space where you are celebrated just as you are. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've been through something similar, or know someone who has, please share this video. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want more stories that dive deep into the messy, beautiful realities of family and revenge. Together, we can shine light on the shadows where so many are left unseen. Story 2. I was never the favorite that was always my sister. The golden child who could do no wrong. No matter how cruel she was, no matter how much she got away with. Mom adored her. Me, I was just there, an afterthought. A shadow in my own home. Growing up, I learned fast that my opinions didn't matter. My dreams didn't matter. My feelings were either ignored or ridiculed. When my sister failed a test, It was my fault for distracting her when she lost a friend. When something got broken, I must have pushed her into it. And Mom believed her every single time, while I tried harder than anything to be the perfect daughter. I worked late into the night on my grades. I swallowed their insults in silence. I never fought back. I thought maybe, just maybe, if I proved my worth, if I was good enough, they'd finally love me the way they loved her. But nothing changed. It all crashed down the night they told me I'd ruined their lives. They were arguing. You could say I was just standing there, letting them yell, but it was always about my sister. She'd flunked a class again. And instead of admitting it was her own fault, she blamed me. "You've ruined our lives," she screamed. I barely had time to react before Mom chimed in. "We'd be happier without you." That was it. The moment that broke me. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't beg them to take it back. I just nodded. Then I turned, walked to my room, grabbed a backpack, and packed whatever I could fit. They didn't stop me. They didn't even watch me go. And just like that, I was gone. I stepped out into the night and never looked back. The weight of my backpack pressing against my shoulders. But nothing compared to the heaviness in my chest. I walked without a destination, just putting distance between me and the house I had never truly called home. It was cold. I remember that vividly. The air bit at my skin. But I didn't shiver. I was numb. I had always thought that leaving would feel dramatic. Like in the movies. Maybe with tears streaming down my face, or a last lingering look at the home I was abandoning. But there was none of that. And a one ran after me. No one called my name. No one cared. And I didn't know where to go. I had no plan. No safety net. My savings were laughable. Just a couple $100 I had secretly stashed away from small tutoring gigs. But I knew one thing for sure, I would never go back. I found a cheap motel for the night. Paying for a single room with shaky hands, I stared at the bed, but couldn't bring myself to lie down. Instead, I sat at the small desk, the dim yellow light flickering above me, and tried to figure out what to do next. I didn't have a degree. I didn't have connections. I barely had money. But I had one advantage. I had spent my entire life being ignored. Underestimated. No one had ever handed me anything. If I was going to make it, I'd have to build something from nothing. I started with what I knew, studying. It sounded ridiculous at the time. But I was good at it. I had spent years excelling in school, tutoring other kids, helping people understand complex subjects. Maybe, just maybe, I could turn that into something. The next day, I walked into a small cafe, ordered the cheapest coffee on the menu, and used their free Wi-Fi to apply for every online tutoring gig I could find. I set my rates low, just enough to get people to notice me. At first, it was barely enough to survive. I lived off instant noodles and dollar store groceries. I rented a room in a shared apartment with 3 strangers who barely acknowledged my existence. But it was still better than where I had come from. Because every day I woke up knowing that no one would scream at me. No one would blame me for their failures. No one would tell me I was ruining their lives. And that was enough. The months passed. My tutoring gigs grew. 1 client turned into 3. 3 turned into 10. Soon I was making enough to move into a tiny studio apartment, barely more than a box. But it was mine. And yet, through all of it, my family never called. Not once. Not on my birthday. Not on holidays. Not even to check if I was alive. It hurt in the way old wounds do. Deep. Silent. Lingering. But I told myself it was fine. If they didn't care, then neither did I. A year into my new life, things changed, and I had built up a reputation as a tutor specializing in college entrance exams. I had students from all over the country reaching out to me, desperate for help. But I was still trading time for money, and I knew that wasn't sustainable. That's when I got an idea. What if I turned my lessons into something bigger? Something scalable. I spent months studying digital marketing, watching hours of free YouTube content, reading every article I could find. Then I started creating my own online course, the ultimate SAT prep guide. It was a risk. I poured every spare dollar I had into designing the course, building a website, running ads. At first, sales trickled in. 1 here, 2 there. Then something shifted. Word of mouth spread. Students started raving about my methods, sharing them online. And then, almost overnight, it exploded. I woke up one morning to see that my sales had tripled, then quadrupled. Within a few months, I was making more than I had ever thought possible. I moved into a sleek, high-rise apartment, the kind I used to dream about. I traveled, met people who actually respected me, built friendships that weren't based on obligation or blood. I had done it. I had built myself from nothing in my family. They were nowhere to be found. Not a single message. Not a single call. They didn't care about me until this morning when my phone buzzed. I barely glanced at it. But then I saw the notifications. Mom's 6 missed calls. Sister 8 missed calls. I stared at the screen. Heart pounding. After all this time, after they had made it so clear they never wanted me, I let out a slow breath. I had changed. I wasn't the weak, desperate girl they had pushed out of their lives. I wasn't their punching bag anymore. Whatever they wanted. It wasn't going to be an apology. And I had no intention of making it easy for them. I sat there staring at the screen for what felt like hours. But in reality, it was only a few minutes. My mind raced. What could they possibly want after all this time? Mom had never once apologized for how she treated me. She had never admitted how she constantly chose my sister over me and my sister. She hadn't even cared to notice I was gone until now. But now, after everything they wanted me, I finally decided to pick up. It was almost surreal, hearing her voice after so long. "Hello," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Sweetie, please, we need to talk." Mom's voice trembled. "Sweetie, after everything." She hadn't called me that in years. The fake tenderness stung. "What's going on?" I asked, not hiding my disbelief. There was a long pause. We've fallen on hard times," Mom continued, her voice cracking. "Your sister, she's been having trouble at school again. And with everything going on, we just don't have enough. We need your help." I bit my lip, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and rage bubbling up inside me. This is why they were calling me now. "What kind of help?" I asked, keeping my tone calm. "We need money." She blurted out, "Your sister's tuition. It's due, and we have bills we can't pay. I know we've never been there for you. But please. We're struggling. We need you to help us. We know it's a lot to ask. But please. We've tried everything." I could hear her sniffle. Maybe it was genuine. Or maybe it was just guilt trying to worm its way back in. Please, she repeated. We need you back. We need your support. The words hung in the air. My support. The same support they had rejected for years. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to control the rush of emotions, threatening to choke me. How could they think this was okay? It was the first time in a long time that I felt something other than indifference. It was laughable. You're serious, I said, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. You really think I'll come back and help you after everything? There was a pause, followed by my mom's desperate voice. Please don't do this. We know we messed up. But we're your family. You can't just leave us like this. You never cared about me when I needed you. I shot back, my voice trembling with suppressed anger. You were too busy with your golden child. You let me disappear. You told me you'd be better off without me. I paused, feeling the rage bubble up in my chest. But I held it in check. I wasn't going to let them see how much they had hurt me. I wasn't going to let them twist this back on me. I don't know you anything, I said, every word sharp as glass. Another long pause. Dunham He sister's voice came through next, sounding frantic and panicked. I know I was horrible to you. But I need your help. I messed up. Okay, I didn't mean it. I've been trying to fix things. But I don't know what to do anymore. I almost laughed. Fix things? How did you fix years of pain? I don't want your apologies, I said coldly. And I don't know you. My money or my help. You can figure it out just like I did. But please just... My sister's voice wavered. But I cut her off. No. You should have thought about this before you kicked me out of your lives. I could feel my heart racing as I hung up the phone. But the adrenaline wasn't just from anger. It was from the satisfaction of knowing that they needed me. After years of silence, of pretending I didn't exist, they needed me. I stood up, pacing the room, letting the reality of the situation sink in. They weren't calling to apologize. They weren't calling because they missed me. They were calling because they needed me to fix their mess. And now that they were struggling, they realized what they had thrown away. But it didn't matter to me. They didn't deserve me anymore. That I was done. But deep down, a part of me wanted to make them beg a little longer. Make them squirm. The phone buzzed again. I glanced at the screen. It was Mom again. The same pleading tone in her message. Please. I know we can't undo the past. But we need you. I grinned. They had no idea what they were getting themselves into. The phone buzzed again, the screen lighting up with a new message from my mom. Please. I'm begging you. We don't know where else to turn. I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the screen. Part of me wanted to ignore it entirely. After all, hadn't I already given them my answer? But there was something about that desperation in her tone that made me hesitate for a moment. I shook my head. No, I wasn't going to soften. I wasn't going to be the one to make their lives better again. The thing is, I had built something for myself. My empire, so to speak. My success wasn't just about the money. It was about the power to decide who got to be a part of my life. And my family didn't deserve that privilege anymore. I set the phone down. I walked to the window and looked out at the city. From this vantage point, everything felt so distant, so small. The struggles of my old life felt like they belonged to someone else. I wasn't that person anymore. I wasn't their burden. Yet the messages kept coming. I took a breath. I wasn't going to give in. I wasn't going to let them manipulate me with their guilt. And yet, deep down, There was a flicker of something. Maybe it was pity. Maybe curiosity. Maybe something darker. But I resisted. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating on the nightstand again. A quick glance at the screen told me it was from my sister this time. I hesitated. Should I even bother reading this? But my thumb swiped across the screen before I could think about it too long. The message came in. I know I can't change the past, but I've been trying so hard to get into college. They rejected me. And now Mom's saying that if we don't get the money for the retake, I'll never make it. Please. Please. I'm so sorry. I felt a pang of something unfamiliar. Not sympathy. Not guilt. But something that made me pause. Was this genuine? Was this really my sister begging me, or was she just playing her part? I took a deep breath, my hand shaking as I typed my response. You never cared when I needed you. Why should I care now? I hit send, and the weight that settled in my chest felt heavier than I expected. There was a part of me that felt cold. Detached. A protective armor I had built over the years. But another part of me, it wanted to believe her. But I couldn't. As the day went on, I continued working. But every time I glanced at my phone, there were more notifications. Calls. Texts. Voicemails. They were relentless. I could feel their desperation creeping through the screen. Through the words. They were starting to crumble under the weight of their own choices. But what did they expect from me? They had made their bed. They had chosen their path. Now it was time for them to face the consequences. But then at 7 p.m., I saw something that made my heart skip a beat. A message from Mom. I need to talk to you. This isn't just about money. I know I messed up. We messed up. But I'm asking you as a mother to come home. I need you. We need you. Please don't leave us like this. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard for a second. I actually considered calling her back. Maybe I could hear her out. Maybe I could find some way to make this work. But then I thought of everything they had put me through. The way they had treated me like I didn't mattered. I wasn't just going to forget that I wasn't their savior. With a deep exhale, I typed, "You had your chance. I'm done." I hit send, and something inside me cracked. And I knew I had made the right choice. But at the same time, there was a lingering ache in my chest because deep down, I couldn't help but wonder, what if this was their last cry for help? What if they really were suffering? But in the end, I had learned one thing: I couldn't fix them. They were beyond saving. And if they wanted anything from me, it had to be on my terms. I set my phone down and tried to forget about them. But the next evening, as I was sitting in my living room scrolling through my phone, I heard a knock at the door. A sharp, quick rap, followed by a pause. I looked up, a little confused. Who could that be? I stood up and walked over to the door, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. Something didn't feel right. Peering through the peephole, my stomach dropped. There they were. Mom, Dad, and my sister standing on my doorstep, looking like they hadn't slept in days. Their faces were tired, drawn, and pale. But it wasn't just their appearance that made my pulse quicken. It was the fact that they had shown up here uninvited. I froze for a moment, unsure of what to do. Part of me wanted to ignore them, to turn around and walk away, pretending I hadn't seen them. But the rage I had been bottling up came surging forward. I wasn't about to let them invade my space. After everything they'd done, I opened the door just enough to see them fully. My heart was hammering in my chest. "What are you doing here?" I asked. My voice low, but shaking with anger. Mom stepped forward first. Her eyes wide with desperation. "Please. Please just hear us out," she pleaded, her voice trembling. I stared at her. The same woman who had told me she'd be better off without me, who had shoved me aside, time and time again. And now she was standing on my doorstep, asking for help. "What the hell are you doing here?" I repeated, my tone rising. "You think just because you show up at my door, I'm going to take you back? You think I'm going to forget everything you've done?" Dad shifted uncomfortably behind Mom. But he didn't speak. My sister stood next to him, her eyes on the ground, avoiding my gaze. We're sorry," Mom said, her voice breaking. "We've been trying to reach you, but we know we've messed up. It's just so hard, and we don't know what else to do. You're the only one who can help us. The only one who can help you." I felt the anger rise up like a tidal wave. "You didn't need me before. Why now? You had years to fix this." I snapped. "Years. And you never once bothered to reach out to make things right. Not when it mattered. And now you think you can just show up here and make everything okay." They were silent for a moment, clearly taken aback by my coldness. Mom's eyes welled with tears. But I couldn't bring myself to care. "We've been struggling," she continued, her voice a desperate whisper. "We don't have money for rent. Your sister's future is slipping away. I don't know what else to do." "Don't tell me you don't know what else to do," I said, my voice shaking with fury. "Now. You had choices. You made choices. And I wasn't part of them. But now that everything's falling apart suddenly, you want me?" Mom took a step forward, her hand outstretched. "Please just listen." I slammed the door in her face, the sound of it reverberating through the house. The noise echoed in my ears. And for a second I felt a rush of power. I could finally control this situation. But as I stood there, my hand resting on the door handle, something gnawed at me. Something twisted in my gut. It wasn't guilt. It was something worse. It was the realization that they had come here to me because they had nowhere else to turn. And they had shown up. Not because they wanted to fix our relationship. Not because they were truly sorry. But because they needed me. And I hated it. They didn't deserve me. But the anger wasn't the only thing I felt. There was a part of me that wanted to hurt them. To let them see just how badly they had messed up. To make them feel the weight of their own actions and the fact that they thought they could just show up on my doorstep. It made me angrier than anything else. I walked away from the door, leaving them standing on the other side. But they didn't leave. I could hear them talking outside. Mom was pleading. My sister was crying. Dad was trying to comfort them. I couldn't stand it anymore. The anger inside me was overwhelming. And I knew that if I didn't do something, I would regret it. So I opened the door again. There they were. Standing there. Still waiting. The desperation was written all over their faces. Mom's eyes were red from crying. My sister's head hung low in shame. And Dad. He looked defeated. Like a man who had lost everything and didn't know how to get it back. For a moment, I just stood there, taking in the sight of them. The family that had hurt me. The family that had made me feel worthless, invisible, and now they were here asking for help. But what did I owe them? Nothing. I took a deep breath. And then, without a word, I looked at them one last time. Now you don't get to come here and expect forgiveness just because you're struggling now." The words came out cold. Hard. Like a knife slicing through the tension. I didn't feel an ounce of regret as I said them. They deserved to hear the truth. "You had years to fix this," I continued. My voice steady but firm. "Years to realize what you lost. But you didn't care then. And I'm not going to be your solution now." I saw Mom open her mouth to protest. But I held up my hand, silencing her. "I've built my life, my success from the ground up. And I'm not going to let you destroy it too. You don't get to come into my life and expect everything to magically change because you've hit rock bottom." Their eyes started to swell up again. But I couldn't feel anything. No guilt. No remorse. Just a quiet satisfaction, knowing I was finally putting myself first. "Go," I said simply, my voice unwavering. "Fix your own mess. I'm done with that." I closed the door for the last time. Weeks passed, and I kept living my life. My business grew. My network expanded. And I felt more alive than ever. I had become the person I'd always wanted to be. The person who didn't have to apologize for their success. The person who had learned to let go of the toxic parts of their past. I never heard from them again. Not even a message. Not even a call. And, you know what? That was fine. It was a quiet peace I hadn't realized I'd been craving. And as time went on, I came to understand something important. The people who hurt you, the people who abandoned you, are not the ones you should be looking to for validation. You're the one who matters. You're the one who gets to decide your future. And in the end, I had learned one very simple truth. You can't keep giving to people who never gave you anything back. The door closed for good. Story 3. My name's Eli. I'm 33. And I've always been the guy who remembers birthdays, shows up with a gift, and offers to clean up even if I didn't make the mess. My family, though, has never made it easy. I'm not the black sheep exactly. More like the invisible one. I'm not dramatic or loud. And I've never had a major fallout with anyone. But over the years I felt a slow, quiet burn of being edged out. Group chats I wasn't invited to. Inside jokes I didn't understand. Family photos where I was mysteriously missing, even though I'd been standing right there off to the side. I always gave them the benefit of the doubt. They forgot. It wasn't personal. I told myself. I clung to that story far too long. Part of me believed that if I just kept showing up, staying kind, staying helpful, they'd eventually notice me again. The thing about being excluded quietly is it gives everyone plausible deniability. They never have to say, "We don't want you here." They just make you stop expecting an invitation. Last month, I was at my nephew Liam's 7th birthday party, my sister's kid. I brought the Lego Star Wars set he'd been begging for, and even helped build half of it. After the other adults drifted away, I stayed behind to wash dishes while my sister scrolled through her phone, making small talk. That's when I realized I wasn't invisible. I was unwanted. Nothing off. It felt normal. Like maybe, just maybe, things were leveling out. So when I said can't wait for the big family dinner tomorrow, looking forward to catching up with everyone, it was with total sincerity. My cousin Tara froze mid-bite of leftover cake. Then she burst into laughter. "Wait. You don't know. That was yesterday." My stomach dropped, and I turned to my aunt across the kitchen, half hoping this was a bad joke. But no. She pulled out her phone without hesitation. She had photos. A long table set up at my parents' backyard. Fairy lights. Champagne glasses. Everyone dressed up. To my horror. Even extended family I hadn't seen in years. Were there toasts? Speeches. Kids playing group shots. It wasn't some thrown-together backyard barbecue. It was the family dinner. The one my mom hosts every summer. The one that's basically a reunion. My aunt started swiping through the gallery like she was showing me vacation photos. Oh. This one was right before the dessert. That's when your mom gave her little speech about being surrounded by all her blessings. She said that last part slowly. I starting to me, like she realized too late, that maybe I shouldn't be hearing this. But the moment was already poisoned. My face went hot. My mouth was dry. And then my sister, who hadn't said a word until now, looked up from drying a plate and muttered, "Maybe take the hint next time." Just like that. I didn't say anything. I didn't even move. I just stood there for a few seconds, watching her casually wipe down a serving tray like she hadn't just stabbed me in the chest. The room suddenly felt airless. I put down the sponge, walked to the living room, picked up the envelope with Liam's birthday card and the extra gift card I'd slipped in as a surprise, and I left on the drive home. I couldn't stop thinking about her words. Take the hint. I played them back again and again. The way she said it, not angrily, not with malice, just tired, like it had been a long time coming. Like I was some clueless outsider who hadn't taken the message despite the increasingly obvious signs. Like I was a burden for still believing I had a place. I'll admit it. I cried in my car. I'm not proud of it. But I'm not ashamed either. It wasn't about missing the dinner. It was about the final clarity. The unmistakable confirmation that I wasn't one of them anymore. That I'd become, at best, a distant obligation. That night I couldn't sleep. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking through years of slights. I brushed off the time. They told me the Christmas dinner was just immediate family. And then posted group photos with people I barely recognized. The group chats I only found out about through screenshots. The forgotten birthday wishes. The jokes that I never quite got because they'd happened in rooms I wasn't invited into. But here's the thing. I'm not someone who seeks revenge. I'm not petty. I don't want to get back at anyone. What I wanted, what I needed, was to finally be done. No more hoping. No more showing up. No more handing out grace like candy, praying it'd buy me a seat at the table. I started planning something that night. Not revenge. At least not in the usual sense. Something more permanent. Something they wouldn't see coming because they never see me at all. The first step was financial. You see, for the past few years, I've been doing well. I work in it. And while I'm not a millionaire, I've made smart investments. Especially in the last few years when I got into property management. No one really asks me about my life. So they don't know. I own 3 rental homes now. They don't know. I've been helping my parents quietly cover things like roof repairs and plumbing issues through anonymous grants I set up for my LLC. I never needed credit for it. I just wanted to support them because they're my parents, or they were. A week after the birthday party, I got a call from my mom. She was frantic. The central air in her house had gone out during the first heat wave of the season. We were told the repairs are going to be over $8,000, she said, voice shaking. The guy you usually work with said he didn't get the usual maintenance retainer this year. Did something happen with the fund? I calmly told her I had dissolved the grant program. She was confused at first. But I didn't elaborate. I'm sure you and everyone who was at the dinner can figure something out. I said. Silence on her end. I could almost hear her thoughts racing. I didn't wait for her to respond. I just ended the call politely. That same day, I called my lawyer. There were other things I'd funded over the years: college savings for my niece, emergency dental work for my uncle, a part-time assistant my sister used to help with her Etsy business. I had receipts for all of it. None of them knew I'd tied those funds to clauses and agreements, and none of them knew those clauses could be canceled with a single signature. I signed, sent the letters, froze the accounts. It took about 2 weeks for the ripple to hit my inbox. Flooded calls, messages missed, FaceTimes, one from my cousin that just said, "What is going on?" But I didn't respond. And then came the family group chat. Not the one I'd been excluded from, the old one. The one I had created 5 years ago when Grandpa passed and everyone wanted to coordinate funeral logistics. I still had admin rights. I renamed the chat to maybe take the hint, and then one by one, removed every single member. I didn't say a word. Just silence. But that was only the beginning. Because there was still one thing I hadn't taken back. And once I did, it changed everything. The thing I hadn't taken back yet, the one thread still tethering me to them, was the lake house. It wasn't technically mine. Not fully. It belonged to my grandparents. Then passed down jointly to my mom and her sister, my Aunt Val. After Val passed, her half went to my cousin Tara, the same cousin who laughed at me about missing the family dinner. Years ago, when my mom fell behind on some payments, I quietly bought out her share. Legally. I own 50%. But no one ever updated the family's mental scorecard. They still treated it like grandma's place. Everyone used it freely. Vacants, holidays, even full summers. And I let them for years. I never booked it for myself. Never once said no. When someone wanted to use it, I even paid for the new dock last summer. Quietly. Without credit. But now, the lake house was a stage. And I had the script. I waited for Memorial Day weekend, when the whole family usually flooded in. It had been tradition for over a decade. Barbecues. Bonfires. The kids fishing off the pier while the adults got tipsy on cheap drinks and louder as the sun set. I used to love it. But I hadn't been invited the last 3 years. This time, though, I didn't need an invite. I just needed to show up. 3 days before the weekend, I filed the paperwork to restrict shared access to my half of the property. Thanks to a little-known clause in the deed that allowed either owner to petition, use of conflict arose. My lawyer made it airtight. I wasn't blocking them from using the house. I was just requiring a co-owner agreement to do so. Tara, of course, hadn't been paying attention to any of the legal mail to use to me being nice. Eli. Friday morning, I drove up early. Unlocked the house. Parked my truck sideways in the driveway so no one could pull in behind me. Then I waited. It didn't take long. Around noon, 3 cars rolled up. My sister Tara and my mom, plus the kids and spouses. They were laughing until they saw me. Tara stepped out first. "You're here," she said. Voice tight. I smiled. "It's Memorial Day. Thought I'd enjoy the lake." She walked right up to me, arms crossed. "Well, we planned to stay the weekend." I told Mom she could have the master. "That's going to be a problem," I said. Not unkindly. "The house is locked for co-owner review." You would have seen the notice if you opened your mail." She blinked, confused. "What notice?" my sister chimed in, already irritated. "Eli, don't be dramatic. We've been coming here forever. Just because you weren't invited to one dinner." I held up a hand. Calm. It wasn't one dinner. And it wasn't about the dinner. It's about respect. Something this family stopped giving a long time ago. My mom finally approached, her voice quiet. "Eli. Honey. We didn't mean to hurt you. It was just... things got busy. You know how it is." I looked at her. And for a second I almost softened. Almost. But then I remembered. Every time she defended my sister's cruelty, laughed off exclusion like it was a misunderstanding, or played peacemaker by asking me to be the bigger person again and again. "I know exactly how it is," I said. "Which is why I'm here now. This house isn't a shared vacation spot anymore. If you want access, we draft a new agreement. We split maintenance. We rotate usage." Or I shrugged. "We sell." "You wouldn't dare," Tara said, voice rising. "You destroy the family tradition over what hurt feelings." I met her gaze. Steady. "No. You already destroyed the family part. I'm just handling the paperwork." They tried yelling, pleading, guilt-tripping. My mom teared up. My sister called me selfish. Tara threatened to sue. But it didn't matter. I had everything documented. The messages, the receipts, the clause in the deed, and the silence I'd been drowning in for years. That was finally gone. In its place was clarity called clear and necessary. Eventually they left. Not without a few final words thrown at my back. But I didn't flinch. I stood on that porch until the cars disappeared down the gravel road. Then I went inside. Opened a beer and sat in the old rocking chair. Graham I used to use. That night I lit a fire in the pit out back. Watched the embers rise into the sky like sparks from some forgotten 4th of July. And for the first time in a long, long while, I felt like I belonged somewhere. But the final part that came the next morning, because I wasn't done. I had something else to send. And once they opened it, they'd realize the real consequences hadn't even started yet. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of birds and nothing else. No kids screaming on the dock. No blaring Bluetooth speakers from the porch. No smell of my sister's always overcooked bacon. Just stillness. It was almost eerie how peaceful it was. And I liked it. I brewed myself a cup of coffee, walked barefoot down to the water, and watched the early mist curl off the surface like steam from a boiling secret. I had a lot on my mind. But I wasn't sad. Just focused. Resolved. The night before had been a line in the sand. But now it was time to make it permanent. Before I left for the city, I stopped by the post office in town and handed over a thick manila envelope addressed to my family lawyer. Inside was the final piece of the puzzle. My formal decision to sell my half of the lake house not just to anyone, but to a buyer. I'd already vetted a private couple from out of state. No kids. No drama. Just retirees who wanted a quiet escape for the summer months. I'd even offered them a slightly better deal if they agreed to. One condition. They'd put up a gate. Not a huge one. Just enough to clearly mark their half and legally prevent any accidental visits from extended family members who had once treated the house like their personal vacation hop. But the envelope didn't just include the sale contract. It also contained my exit letter. A single page folded on top of the documents addressed to my entire family, I wrote it slowly, carefully, over 2 nights. I didn't want to be cruel. I just wanted to be honest. Brutally. Surgically honest. Here's a part of what it said to everyone who forgot me. You may not have realized it, but over the years, I became a ghost in this family. Not because I drifted away, but because you quietly pushed me there with your exclusions, your silence, your smug smirks. When I'd show up, still believing I mattered. I was the helper, the giver, the quiet one, that extra at the table. I never asked for much, just a chair and a little kindness. But your message has been clear. I'm not family. I'm a resource, a wallet, an afterthought, a punchline. So now I'm taking the hint. You won't have to forget to invite me anymore. You won't have to roll your eyes when I show up, or whisper in the kitchen when I leave the room. I'm done with all of it. I'm not angry. I'm not vengeful. I'm simply done. This house. It was the last place where I still felt tethered to any kind of belonging. And now I've let it go. The buyers are sweet. They'll take care of it. And don't worry. They won't tolerate uninvited guests. Not even on holidays. Consider this letter your official notice. I'm no longer available for guilt, gaslighting, or group chats. I wish you all well. Truly. But from now on, my peace comes first. Li. 3 days later, my phone buzzed nonstop. Missed calls. Voicemails. A flurry of texts that went from confused to panic to furious in the span of hours. My sister, who hadn't said a kind word to me in over a year, suddenly had a lot to say. Things like, "You're breaking Mom's heart, and you're acting like a child." My cousin Tara sent a wall of text that started with, "Are you seriously selling the house?" and ended with, "You'll regret this." But the one that really stuck with me came from my mom. It was just one sentence. "Why are you doing this to us?" I stared at that message for a long time. I almost replied. I even typed a few different things. Some sharp, some gentle. One version that just said, "Because you let them." But I deleted it all because she already knew. A week later, the sale closed. The new owners took over. The family tried to block it. But since Tara hadn't kept up with her share of the maintenance taxes and I had majority rights on the deed, thanks to a little-known clause I'd activated through my LLC, they couldn't stop it. Legally. Financially. Emotionally, it was done. Summer came and went. They ended up renting a lake. Airbnb. 2 towns over. I saw the photos on my cousin's Instagram. 10 francs d'oc? Same for smiles. Same energy of pretending nothing had changed. Except it had. Because the next time they needed a favor, there was no Eli to call. No silent supporter to pick up the slack. No wallet with feelings, as they once called me behind my back on a hot mic during a group Zoom I wasn't supposed to hear. And while they scrambled to adjust, I was building something better. A life where I wasn't invisible. A new circle of friends who saw me, appreciated me, laughed with me, and never once made me beg for a seat at the table. It wasn't about revenge. It was about release. But don't get me wrong. There was one more twist. Because 2 months after the house sale finalized, something interesting happened at work. My company launched a new mentorship initiative. A paid program where we invited applicants from across the region to train in IT and project management. It was designed for people looking to start over. Yes. Who applied, Tara? She didn't realize the application would land directly on my desk, and she definitely didn't expect the little note I stapled to her rejection letter. Just 6 words. Maybe take the hint next time. The weeks that followed were quieter than I expected. No more calls. No more texts. It was as if, after years of silent dismissals, the silence had finally become mutual. And for once, I didn't feel like I had to fix it. I stopped checking their social media. I removed myself from the last remnants of family email threats. My phone was still in my mind. Was clearer than it had been in years. But clarity doesn't mean peace comes easy. There were nights I lay awake wondering if I'd gone too far. If I should have just kept being the quiet one, the dependable one. The one who bit his tongue for the sake of keeping a fragile family illusion intact. That internal guilt had been a well-worn jacket. Familiar. Even comforting in its own twisted way. But guilt, I realized, is a tool manipulators use when outright control doesn't work anymore. It was hard to let it go, but I did. Because something else started growing in its place. Something stronger. Dignity. A sense of boundaries. A strange but welcome pride in the fact that I had, for the first time, chosen myself over people who had proven again and again that they wouldn't have chosen me. Work got better too. I got promoted. Turns out, when you're not constantly drained by toxic family dynamics, your brain has more room to thrive. I finally took that trip to Kyoto I've been putting off for years. Went solo. Spent 2 weeks wandering through bamboo forests and sipping match on quiet balconies. I didn't post about it. Didn't announce it to the world. I just lived it fully. Quietly. For myself. The final thread unraveled on Thanksgiving. Traditionally, it was hosted at my parents' house. A big production. Stuffing recipes copied from Grandma's old notes. My dad's dry turkey. The usual arguments over who got to sit closest to the fireplace in me. Of course. If I was invited. Usually stuck at the far end of the kids' table or in the folding chair by the door. No one really noticed when I stopped coming a few years ago. But this year, things were different. That morning, I got a knock at my door. It was my father. I hadn't seen him in nearly a year. He looked older. A little thinner. His once jet black hair was grayer than I remembered. He was holding a foil-covered dish. His eyes were bloodshot. Not from crying. I don't think. Just the kind of long, slow where that happens. When life finally forces a man to sit with his choices. "Can I come in?" he asked. I didn't answer. I just stepped aside. He sat down at my kitchen table and put the dish down. He didn't offer it. Didn't explain it. Just stared at the wood grain for a while. Like it held answers he didn't have. "Your mother's not doing well," he finally said. I nodded. That tends to happen when you lose control over people. He flinched. Whether it was the words or the calm way I said them, I'm not sure she's sorry. Eli. She says it every day. I poured him a glass of water and sat across from him. She had years to say it to my face. He looked like he wanted to argue. Then he sighed and said, "You were right to walk away. I didn't expect that." He continued. "I told her we should have handled things differently. That we shouldn't have treated you like some outsider in your own bloodline. I tried to talk to your sister about it. She says you're being dramatic. That you're holding a grudge." I laughed softly. Not out of amusement. Just disbelief. Of course she does. She's not doing so well either. Her Etsy shop folded. She's staying with us now. Your mother's under a lot of stress. And he looked up at me. Finally. Really looked. I'm not here to guilt you. I'm here because I realized something. You weren't the one who abandoned the family. We abandoned you. And we just got used to the idea that you'd never push back. The silence between us sat heavy. Then he added, I read your letter. I raised an eyebrow. The one you sent to the lawyer, he forwarded a copy to me after the house was sold. I read it 3 times. I cried each time. I didn't know what to say. You're a better man than I ever gave you credit for. He said, I'm sorry it took losing the house and losing you to see it. I believed him. I don't know why. But I did. There was something raw about his voice. Not performative. Just worn out. I stood. Walked to the fridge and pulled out a small pumpkin pie I had picked up the day before. I sliced 2 pieces. Placed one in front of him. No turkey, I said. But it's real whipped cream. He smiled a little. We didn't talk much after that. Just ate. 2 men with too much history between them and no real map forward. But it was something. Not a full repair. Not a reconciliation. But a start. And I made it clear, if things were to ever be different, it would be on my terms now. No more appeasement. No more backseat in my own story. A few days later, I got a letter in the mail handwritten from my mom. I read it twice. Then I put it away. I wasn't ready to respond. Maybe I never would. Forgiveness doesn't come on cue. And it certainly doesn't come without change. Weeks passed. I was moving into winter with a kind of peace I hadn't known in years. Real peace, earned peace. Then, just before Christmas, I got a text. Not from my sister. Not from Tara. From Liam. My nephew. It was a video message. Hey, Uncle Ellie, he said, grinning. Toothless. Look into the camera. Mom says we're not supposed to talk to you. But I miss you. I told her. That's dumb. I hope you're okay. I'm building another Lego spaceship. It's got 3 engines this time behind him. I heard my sister's voice yell. Liam. Give me that phone. The video cut off. I watched it again and again. My chest hurt in a way that had nothing to do with anger. Just sadness. Not for myself. For him. For what he was being dragged into the cycle of exclusion. The weaponization of silence. He didn't deserve that. So I sent back a video. Hey. Bud. I said, smiling. That sounds like an awesome spaceship. I bet it's the fastest one in the galaxy. I miss you too. And I'm always here. No matter what anyone says. Okay. I never heard back. But that was okay because I meant it. The revenge was never really about hurting them. It was about stopping the hurt they caused me. About putting up walls. Not to punish. But to protect. And maybe, just maybe, someone in the next generation won't grow up feeling invisible. Maybe they'll learn. It's okay to say no. To draw lines. To walk away from people who only love you when it's convenient. As for me, I'm good. I bought a new place. Smaller. Cozier. With a real fireplace and a wide front porch. I host game nights with friends. Cook dinners that aren't critiques in disguise. I laugh more. Sleep better. And when I see old photos pop up on my phone from family gatherings where I stood off to the side, half smiling, half hoping I swipe past them, not because I'm bitter, because I'm free.